Brothers and sisters, misses and misters, Pop-Tarts and upstarts, today's episode on the Dented Cast is a continuation of one of our last episodes, and if you like our show and you're a member of our show, please hit the like button. It would do us a lot of good. We'd really appreciate it, and it will only take a second. And you can subscribe if you want to, because we are never going to run out of stuff to talk about. Last episode was about Max's father, Larry. What a piece of work. And I mean that in a friendly, in a customer service kind of a way, because I was flabbergasted by that. You know, kids get together and they say, you know, my dad this, my dad that.
Well, can you talk my dad of my story?
Yeah, I can. You know, I think my dad was a bigger coward than your dad.
Really?
Yes,
well, I think my dad was more capable of embarrassing me in public than your dad.
Well, my dad has been married to dysfunctional people more times than your dad.
Well, my dad has more DUIs than your dad.
That's okay. Well, my dad was the biggest hypocrite in church than your dad.
Okay, you win. Your dad sounds like a real asshole. His name was Russ, right?
Russ, R-U-S-S, and we're digging up the Pandora's box. And this is not a box that you put on your dresser and open it up with a couple of cute little things in there. This is one of those big boxes that comes on a train, that's stacked up, that comes on a ship from China. My dad's demons were more than Cub fans, I think, by the millions. He was a troubled soul and a sick, hurting person. And his dysfunction, his dents in his can, whatever it was that disturbed him, spewed up and messed up everybody's life around him. And the closer we were to him, the more it was messed up. And I wish I had happy memories about him, but I don't. And unfortunately, sadly, I know I'm not the only one. You told me about your father, and when you talk about your own situation, it's pretty personal.
Do you love your dad?
Max, I wish I did. And I was very, I don't want to say envious, but I admired you for being able to say without a doubt that you loved your father. I tried. Some days I can forgive what he did, and other days it pops back up like a turd that won't flush. And I sometimes
I'm
hate.
sorry to laugh.
No, it's okay. It really, you think it's gone, and it got boop. It's a double flusher. That little dingleberry comes right back up, and it's right back in the shit. And I wish I could say that in a more pleasant way, but I can't. And I try hard. I had a stepmother. We'll talk about that in another episode. And as soon as I heard she died, I prayed when I still believed in God. I prayed for her slow and painful death. And that was the only prayer that God ever answered, if there is one, because she got her slow and painful death. And I was so embarrassed and hurt, and I knew it was wrong when I heard that, and I was able to instantly forgive her and see the entire situation. And it doesn't make me any better, but it was a crystal clear situation to me, and we're good. If there is a next life and I meet her, we are going to have a good relationship, because it was just a bad time for both of us. Father, it's a tough one. I can't do it. I can't say I have officially forgiven him, because there's still some pain there, and I don't know how to let it go. So it really hurts.
Like we said before in previous episodes, neither one of us are mental health experts.
Or don't claim to be.
And we have read, warehouses full of books
until our eyes are bloodshot.
Trying to find the answer. With your dad, he would say horrible things to you even as a young child. He had names for you.
He would say horrible things about everybody. He would give us nicknames and something. For some reason, homosexuality was a thing with him. He didn't accept it. He didn't like it. Wasn't open-minded about it. And he looked at it as a scourge. And I was a skinny kid. And I wouldn't live with him. I lived with my grandparents, but they would try to assimilate me with my siblings. I have an older brother, older sister, and a half brother younger. And that was a whole horrible situation. But to go down there, and I was 9, 8, 7, 9, 10 years old, whatever. And my father's name for me was the ass-pinching fairy. Why would you call a 7-year-old kid that? I didn't know what an ass or a pinch or a fairy was. Why would you call me that? And I just thought that it was mean-spirited, and it was mean-spirited. You could just sense whatever the words are. I love you. Well, no, you didn't love us. The spirit behind the words was a lot deeper than that. And I had a half-brother who absolutely is gay, and that's funny to me that it was the scourge of him. What he hated the most was what he got from one of his sons. And he never accepted him, and they didn't have the greatest relationship either. But I talked to my half-brother Bruce, And he's my brother. I don't call him, just younger. And he said, yeah, I forgive him, and there's part of me that loves him. And I admire him, and I admire you. And I'm just being honest with you. I don't love him. I'm still struggling to love myself. And I really have a hard time with that sometimes because I heard so much. You're a piece of shit. You're never going to do anything. You're lazy. You're never going to. You want to impress me? Mop a floor, drive a truck. And he always had a voice like a wrestler, kind of a deep voice. And he had a beard, and he wore sunglasses inside, and he usually wore a cap. He was a biker. He rode with the Outlaws motorcycle gang, and he was one of the top dogs in the Outlaws. And when we would want to sit at the kitchen table as a family when I was down visiting my siblings, we couldn't because all the bikers would sit around because my father would have my stepmother go and cook meals, and there was a little cash box on the table, and if the bikers were out raping and pillaging and they decided they hungry in the McDonald's drive-thru couldn't get an order, they'd come over to the house and have a meal, and tonight we're having fish sticks, it's gonna be $6, spaghetti. So he would always find a way to get an angle over, but we never sat around for a family meal or anything like that. And he just never, we could never break through that. The dark glasses, the beard, he was hiding something. Was he sexually molested by a gay person as a kid? I don't know. I never heard any stories about it, but there was just something dark and deep about him, and it was impenetrable. I never saw a human. I never saw love. I never saw warmth. The one word I could say to describe my father is fear. He had a deep voice. He played that intimidation. He was only about 5'7", but as a kid, he was Andre the Giant. Oh my God, don't get your father to hit you. And he's going to kick the shit out of you. And my brother Larry, he would put his head through the plaster wall in the bathroom and beat the shit out of him. And I'd see those slats. And to this day, every time I see those slats in an older house, I think of my brother's head going through the wall. I'm thinking, what is it? He was a bully, and he was just filled with rage. And he would go, okay, we drop a ball. My brother Larry and I, we had this big Frisbee. I don't even remember where we got it. Frisbees are a normal size, probably of a dinner plate. And we got this, it was big. It was probably like the size of a garbage can lid. To this day, I've never seen a Frisbee that big before. And we're in the alley, and my grandpa was over, who raised me. So that's my father talking to his father in the backyard. And it was a small backyard, and it was an alley. And my brother Larry and I are throwing the Frisbee off. My Larry's 2 years older than me, and I was probably 9 or 10. And my brother was 2 years older, so he's 10 or 12, whatever it was. And kids get to be kids, and this giant Frisbee, and I threw it as hard as I could, and it went right up in the air. And to this day, like a scene out of a cartoon, I can see this giant hunk of plastic in the air going all the way up, coming all the way down, and coming right down on my father's head and knocking him off the stool that he was sitting on. It just knocked him off. And everybody just stood, even my grandfather. It was just such a shock. And my father got up there, "You want that stuck up your ass?" And I said, "No." And it was just a painful silence. And it trembled both Larry and I, and even my grandpa said, "Boy, I never, your father, that's his son." And you could just see the rage. And it was just totally innocent, like I'm not going to do it on purpose. And why I thought of that all those years later, and I'm sorry to bore you with that long story, but the reason I brought it up is those little tiny events, which to them meant absolutely nothing, was such an intimidating thing. Years later, had a one-on-one with my father, which we'll talk about. That's a completely different episode. And he said, "Am I the evil ogre that you remember as a kid now? Look at me. I'm old. I'm frail. My heart is weak. I'm going to die soon." I said, "Yeah, you are that evil ogre that I saw as a kid, because that little kid is screaming for love and attention and just want a hug, and you're yelling and screaming like I'm a bad person. And I don't know how to deal with that when I'm a little kid. I didn't know how to deal with it when I was 9. I didn't know how to deal with it when I was 29. I didn't know how to deal with it when I'm 49. It's just, you don't need to, and if you never resolve that issue somehow, even with yourself, because sometimes if they're dead, you don't have a chance to do that. It's going to kill you. It's going to cause you to drink. It's going to cause you to do drugs. It's going to cause you to abuse your own kids, your wife, your working relationships, your friendships, and all of that. And you have to pop that boil. And I'm still in the process of popping that boil, but it's all because of Daddy. That's where it started. And it's scary to go there. And that's why we talked about your dad too. And it's scary to go there. You don't want to. It's unpleasant, but it's necessary.
Well, there's people watching that have had the same or similar experience.
Oh, sure.
And then there's other people watching that may be in Russ's role.
Mm-hmm.
And to those people, hopefully they turn around before it's too late. Turn around. Face yourself. Take accountability. I mean, did he ever take any kind of accountability at all for anything that he ever did?
Max, never once. He said, okay, you want an apology? All right, I'm sorry. There. That's all you're ever going to get.
It's more than I got.
Okay.
So
Well, and that's the thing. I forced a one-on-one meeting with him, and he said, He said, let's see how you are when you have kids. And he said the same thing that we've heard. I'm sure you've heard it. You kids didn't come with a manual. Well, fuck you and your ass with a cactus, because you could have made an effort to ask your father, to ask somebody else, that you couldn't feel the pain that you were causing everybody. We were in fear. And I'm sure you had the thing is when your dad's like a Jack in the Box.
Right.
Da-da, 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 pop goes the weasel, and you don't want to be around when it pops. My dad was a night watchman at City Hall. And all these years later in Milwaukee is where we grew up. And to have your job replaced by a camera, you know what I'm saying? Now it's a camera. There's no human being. And he used to brag that he slept on the mayor's couch. And who's going to rob City Hall in any city in America? There's not any money in there. But he was the night watchman, and that was his job. And he would work third shift, obviously. And he would sleep days. And, don't wake your father. That was, oh, my God, don't wake your father. God forbid. Kids would be laughing outside, throwing a baseball around, having a good time, doing what kids do. And the old man woke up, and he'd come and smack the shit out of everybody. And then we're all afraid to peep, fart, breathe, squeak, do anything. And it was a lifetime of that as a child. Always fear. He always had to have that violence, physical violence, fear. And you look back on it, what did any of that prove? Okay, say we woke him up. Is that job that important? Was he guarding the nuclear secrets of the president of the United States, and he had to be in full consciousness and get 8 hours of beauty sleep? He was a night watchman, wiping dust off of couches. Really, he couldn't have got up an hour early, maybe threw the ball around with us for a while. Hey, Dad, can we play horse basketball? Nothing. Don't ever remember that, ever. But boy, we were in fear of him.
I know that fear, and so many things flood my mind when I'm listening to you. One, I just want to tell you from the universe, I'm sorry you had to go through that, buddy, because I know that you had a pure heart, because you still do, and I know the real Dobie, unlike a lot of people in the world, because now, like we've talked about before, you have some of those same tendencies when someone hurts you. Like if there's a heckler in the crowd, you can manifest your father and you can take him out, and it hurts you. It hurts your soul.
Max, it does. And as you said in a previous episode, go check out a previous episode about Max's dad, because it was brilliant in how he related out. How can I say, without as much emotion as I am? I'm trembling inside when I talk about this. You handle yourself with composure, and I've known as the Razor when it comes in comedy. That's a nickname I have. That, don't heckle him. And Dobie gets pissed off. He is so funny. I had a comedian come up to me and say, I pulled a Dobie the other day and I flipped out at somebody, and they were doing it as a compliment, and I just wanted to cringe and cry, and I don't want to be known to be that monster. And some club owner one time, I'll never forget, in Buffalo, New York, and they didn't mean anything by it. It put it on the marquee, the little synopsis of the comedians coming. It says, Dobie Maxwell's ability to vanquish hecklers is legendary. Come and take your shot.
So then Russ and Larry and all their friends came,
yeah,
because it was a challenge.
Yeah, and they had a couple of beers in them, and it's like, why would you do that?
Oh, right.
And I was like a Don Rickles, but Bruce Lee ninja. I'll show you your heart. I'll reach in your throat and grab it and show it to you before you die. And it's a matter of poking the tiger, and I don't want to be known as that person. I never wanted to be known as that person.
But you're not that person. And my whole point with that is that you learned that. That was a learned behavior.
Same thing. That's what he teaches you. Your parents are the ones that you are a blank slate. They are 100%, as you said, they are 100% involved in teaching you, and I'm sorry that I had to learn at that school.
Right. Because you still have a hole inside.
Yes.
What did you want most from your dad?
A big hug. Aren't you a great son? I am so proud of you. From an early age, and please don't, I'm not bragging, but I showed an ability, a creative ability, and I was labeled, I hate to use this word, genius. I was labeled as a creative genius in about the third grade, and my grandpa got a note home from school. They pin it on you, and I think I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm get, what did I do? They're gonna spank me, blah blah blah. And I remember my grandpa looking at it, and his eyes got big, and he said, "I have to go see your teacher." And I thought, I didn't do anything wrong. He said, I know you didn't. But your kid might, you go, oh my God, what did I do? Did I fart in lunch? What did I do? And they said, this kid has got really creative tendencies. We want to bump him up into the 5th grade. And he said, no, because of the age difference, I think it's going to be detrimental. Keep him in the 3rd grade. So he worked to keep me stimulated mentally. He would take me to the library and rent books that were bigger than my reading level and have me read them in front of him. So he did the fathering job, the father figure that his son didn't do with his own son. And sometimes grandparents, it's the second chance, it's the mulligan in life, whatever. There's a lot of stories about that too. So as long as you have a father figure, but when it's your real father, that's the one you want. And my father, oh, it's the genius. And it's how you say something. Oh, the genius is here. Hey, genius. Oh, God, to this day, that word makes me cringe. And it's one of the things where he never looked at it as a positive. And I went on and said, boy, you are a great son, and I am so proud of you. Never got any of that. That's all I wanted. That's it. And then when I got to be a comedian, he would refer to me behind my back, of course, as the legendary Dobie Maxwell, comedy legend Dobie Maxwell. And I changed my name, and I don't hide that. And I remember that I did change my name, and it cost me $200, and I had to go to in front of a judge in a court, and the judge said, you're changing your name to Dobie? I said, yes, Your Honor. And he goes, okay. Boom, next case. And it was in the paper, and I remember seeing my father about 6 months after that. It might have been for Thanksgiving or Christmas, which is always a tense situation. And he walked over to me, and everybody in the family just backed off. It's like, okay, here are the 2 Brahma bulls going to face off in the living room and say, oh, you see, you changed your name. What, are you ashamed of your family? I looked him in his eye, and I said, yeah, that's exactly why. And he had nothing to say. He turned around and walked away, and that was it. And I never could pick that scab to find out where his pain came from to make him that hateful with a hair trigger.
Well, and we'll get into that because his mom, your grandma, who you had a great relationship with, and we're not going to travel off into that right now, but we will. There are clues where he became who he was.
Yeah.
You know? But I still maintain that even with Russ, your father, Larry, my father, when you get to a certain age, any of us need to take responsibility for ourselves. It's up to us.
Sure.
How we react with other people or don't react is up to us and 100% within our control. You know?
Well, that's easier said than done. I don't disagree with you one instance, but that part of my can is so dented and destroyed that it is very sensitive to this minute. And I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed. But I'm also honest enough to admit it still hurts, man. Mm-hmm. Long after he's dead. He's been dead as we record this, 15 years. Still hurts.
Yeah. If he could come back and he looked you in your eyes and said, you were a magnificent young boy and I ruined it and I'm so sorry. I really am sorry. And I'm so proud of you for making people laugh all over the world. And I'm so proud of you, the book that you wrote.
Oh, Max, I'm sorry, buddy. I never thought of this before. I'm tearing up. That's always what I wanted to hear.
Well, that's what you deserve to hear.
It's been so out of my realm of possibility to think that I could ever hear those words, especially from him, but just in general, man. Oh, sorry.
That's what you deserve to hear.
That's what they pay therapists for. And I owe you a check, man. He could have said something.
Yeah, he could have, but he didn't. And it's over. And you can't do anything about it now other than free yourself and know that you weren't the problem.
You know,
right? Really, you weren't the problem.
There's so many things going in my head right now. Everything you say, I agree with. But I think I can't speak for anybody else, but I can speak for me and people I've talked to, that it's so ingrained in us. You're an asshole, you suck, you're a dipshit, you're no good, blah, 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 blah. To say what you just said just was an uppercut I didn't expect, but a good one, man. And I think if I would have had that at age 8, I never would have got into comedy. I never would have been pissed off. I'm sure I've got health issues of all the anger that I walked around with. And every time I fart, flames come out because there's so much rage in my body. I could have been a nice guy, and I'm
You could have
dead.
been working at Mutual of Omaha.
I could have been a contender. And every time I think this love wants to come out, and there's certain natural characteristics. Some people are just cold fish, and we're all different. But every relationship I've had, and a lot of relationships as you get older, it's not the, how can I say, picking fruit off the tree. I dated women with children, and I think I've gravitated toward that because I like the kids many times more than I like the woman. And I had several women tell me, when we go out for pizza, it's like you're the kid and I'm the one parent. It's like, well, I don't care because then I'll buy them chocolate bars until they puke.
Right. Right.
And we go and do all the fun stuff. And I remember this one woman, she had these kids were, I don't know, 6, 5, 2. There's 3 kids. And so I know she puts out. Someone got it. So I remember having this car, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And there was this big puddle, a sewer main broke, and it was right by the house where they lived. And there was this big puddle, and all the cars were in the other lane, and there was a work truck there, and the guys had the big orange cones, and the guys they were walking away, and I took my car and I ran through that puddle, and I got all the other cars wet, and it was a big splash. That's exactly what a 9-year-old kid would do, and the sheer glee and joy of the laughter, not just the kids, but the woman and myself, to this day was cleansing and purifying, and that's the thing that everybody should do. And I would have had a whole life of that with my own family who could look at me now and say, you were the best fucking dad that ever walked the earth. And now it's until my 50s when I'm just starting to open that little crusty little clam with that pearl that's been hidden all these years because I haven't been able to figure out a way to open it. And that's why we're doing this show.
That's why we're doing this show. And I want to thank you very much for being so open with your heart and telling the truth about your father. I mean, I know that you said a couple of times, you said that there were some funny parts about your dad, that he was very funny sometimes.
Like you talked about your father being,
Yeah.
but it was always in a mean and a vicious, nasty way.
Right, evil. Yeah.
Evil way, but boy, I hate to say it, if it wasn't you, it was very funny. But
Yeah.
if he's calling you ass-pinching fairy or...
When you're 7.
When you're 7, or spaghetti muscles. When I got to be 11 or 12, you see the Charles Atlas ads and you want to be a muscle man.
Sure.
But I was spaghetti muscles after that. And it's like, boy, it's real funny to everybody else, but it hurts when it's you.
Right.
So I never wanted to be mean-spirited in my comedy. And I always wanted to be nice and friendly and have people have a good time. And people say, boy, you're funny, your act is good, but when you get pissed, you lays at 10 levels. And I don't want to be that rage-filled asshole mimicking my father. And you asked me before, did I want his approval? Is that why I got into comedy? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't want to be a comedian anymore, because I'm rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, and my life is going in a much better direction.
Yeah, and you know what's probably going to haking?
I'm going to get so many more gigs, and I'm going to get all this,
yeah, because you're cutting the cancer out.
I don't care anymore. And now comedians look up to me. I have a Facebook group which has about close to 5,000 people want to be comedians around the world, not just at 30 countries. And I'm just shocked and pleasantly surprised.
Good. Can you all subscribe, by the way, to this channel, please?
Subscribe to this channel right here. And yes, and please hit like if you like this one. And if you lost you long ago when I started bawling like a baby, that's okay too. But there's some people that are going to stick through. And I think that it is really important to know that you have to like yourself. And you have to. And it took me decades to get to that point. I'm just starting a little bit to think, I'm not half a piece of shit that he said I was, and a lot of other people did.
Not at all.
Well, there's a lot of people that would beg to differ, but I think about it as I get older. The ones that hate me to the ones that don't, it's probably 100 to 1. But it's like anybody. The comedians will tell you all that you could be in front of 2,000 people, killing and absolutely roaring with laughter, and if there's one person in that front row that's not laughing, that's the one you focus on.
Right.
What had a bad show? That's the one that was. We had 500 good shows. The bad one. That's the one.
Right.
And that's something we have to retrain ourselves because we've had a lifetime of education from the wrong people.
Right.
Sorry.
Before we leave Russ behind. Okay. The one thing I want to point out, actually, there's a couple of things. One is Russ was not a drinker, but displayed all of the classic characteristics of an alcoholic.
He was an addictive personality. He would smoke 2 packs of Cool filters a day. He would drink coffee that was like Jell-O. It was thick. It was black. He'd drink 3 pots of that every day. And he would drink Coca-Cola in glass bottles by the 8-pack. So with all that caffeine and nicotine, no wonder he was a powder keg ready to pop at any moment.
Right. But I find it interesting. You not only are not an alcoholic, you've never tasted alcohol.
Never had a drink.
Is that because of Russ?
I'm
wondering.
I don't know. I really don't know. And my grandpa said the same thing. He showed me a lot of things in life. He said, I couldn't stay away from smoking. He said, do it. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Nothing good's ever going to happen with that. And it made perfect sense to me. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but it made perfect sense. I had no desire to smoke. All the other kids started smoking pot in school. I never wanted to do that. I never did a line of Coke. I never had a beer. I never had a drink. And
You've never tasted alcohol ever.
No, I'll tell you this one, and I'll say because people have tried to slip me drinks.
Right.
They'll slip me something. I was like, okay, I taste it. So I've had a sip of it.
Okay.
4 or 5 times in my life.
Okay.
So I can't. But I'm just saying that's.
Well, that's evil too for people to do that. So
yeah, they're because they couldn't stand to see anybody else. I'm not saying I don't have problems.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm better, but yeah, that's. My complex dented can, that is one. We all have our unique stories. There are 8 billion tales in the naked city. This is just one of them.
Well, on behalf of the universe, you are a good person.
Thanks,
I know that about you.
I know that about you.
Well, but I do know that about you. And I know that really the reason why you've been hurt for so long is because you've been hurt for so long. That's why, as a young kid. And
well, your whole life is when you're in this. I'm trying to bring the gloves down, but I'm afraid because I think I'm gonna get popped in the face.
Right, exactly, right.
And if you are, we have a positive. We try to always leave on a positive. There is a person named Wayne Dyer that is a self-help guru. Maybe you know who he is, maybe you don't. But he had a horrible family situation, and his father. He never met his father, and he was an alcoholic and abusive, and he had to spend some time in a nursing, not nursing home. Excuse me, he had to spend some time in an orphanage. And there's going to be a link. Look at the link. He was on a show called The Bonnie Hunt Show, which is now not on anymore. And it was taped on November 10th, which happened to be my father's birthday, November 10th. And it's the most moving story of a father and forgiveness. His story makes your and I's look like, Beaver Cleaver. So go check out that as a happy ending. It'll really inspire you because it has inspired us.
And by the way, if you're 20 years old and watching this, we'll put a note to Beaver Cleaver, actually.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's an old reference. I apologize. You know what? Yes, I'm old. I got to get in my wood-burning Amish car and ride my horse home.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this. We appreciate that. And we really do. Once again, this show is for anyone who has felt like they have no one. Okay? You do, and it's right here, and it's us. Thank you very much for watching.